Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all this morning. If you're by family, why don't you turn, look at them, say, "You're looking beautiful today." Give them a kiss and a hug. Or if you're alone, find somebody good looking, see what happens. You can always try. Hey, got a question for you, all right? Real simple. It has to do with the topic that we're on today. How patient are you? Seriously, in fact, let me just ask this question. If you were to rate yourself from 1 to 10, with 10 being like awesome patient and 1 being like just almost no patience at all, what would you be rated on 1 to 10 with patience? Well, why don't you turn to the person next to you and tell them right now what you think you'd be, all right? Come on, just tell them. I know some of you are so bad, like right now, you're just like, get this over with. Come on, move. Next thing, whatever it is. How many of you said less than 5? Oh my gosh, you're a tough crowd right here. A gal was telling me last night that I had told them last night, do it without using words. So she had turned to her husband. She said, I'm not a patient person. So she held up one finger. He reached over and went. I thought that was awesome right there. That's communicating without words. Patience, for the best of us, can be, honestly, it can be quite a struggle, really. Sometimes it just seems like it's all we can do to practice it. I read a story recently about this that I thought was good. This guy's in a grocery store, and he sees a woman with a 3-year-old little girl in her cart, and she's sitting in there. And he happens to be in the cookie aisle with her, and the girl's asking for cookies, and the mom says no. And so the guy watches as the girl starts to cry and whine and act fussy and everything. And then he hears the mom, as she's pushing the cart, speak very softly. She said, Now, Ellen, we just have half the aisles left to go. Don't be upset. It'll be over. It won't be long. So the guy's impressed by that. But then in the next aisle, he happens to be there when they're there again. It's the candy aisle, and the girls ask for candy, and the mom says no, and the girl just begins to scream and cry. And he's watching this, and then he hears the mother again speak very softly, and she says, There, Ellen. Don't cry. Only 2 more aisles to go, and then we'll be checking out. And crazily enough, when they get in the checkout, he's behind them in the checkout. Well, the little girl is asking for gum, and she says no. The mom says no, and so she's screaming and continuing to throw a tantrum. And he hears the mom say softly, Ellen, we'll be through this in a couple minutes, and then you can go home and have a nice nap. And he's so impressed by this that when he gets out to the car where she's loading her groceries after he checks out, he just says to her, he says, I just got to tell you, I'm so impressed how gentle and how well you treated little Ellen here. The woman looked at her and said, No, that's Tammy. I'm Ellen. I love that. Sometimes you need a little self-talk, would you say? I mean, it's like you need to help yourself. I wrestle with this whole area of patience enormously. This is something that I personally struggle with and have much of my life, like a lot of us do. And I knew going into this, if I'm even talking about this subject with all the staff that work here and everything that will hear this talk, I got to be kind of upfront because I get reminded of it on a regular basis. Some of you remember just a few weeks back on a Sunday morning when we had a terrific wind happening. And I was here at the Hastings campus fairly early, and I was watching it, and I thought, this is the kind of wind, blowing that can cause power outages. I actually went on Consumers chart, online, and I'm just watching, and I'm seeing little bubbles come up, and actually they'd lost power right across the street here, and I thought, well, this is not a good sign. So there were a handful of people here in the office by 7:30 that Sunday morning, and they were ironically standing by my office door. I was seated at my desk, and I was talking about how there's these places out, and then boom, our power went out. So it's 7:30, and I don't know, for those of you who live in Barry County, this is my experience. Yours may be different, but here in Barry County, I find that if your power doesn't come back on within about 5 minutes, it ain't coming on for quite a long time. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And then we had people driving in telling us reports of actually their vehicle hitting a downed power line on swayed down over the road. You couldn't really hardly see it, and then they'd hit it with their car, and so it's like, Joel Strickland, who's our executive pastor, also a teaching pastor here at TVC, he was there, and I said to Joel, so let's do this. I said, let's wait until 8:30. Give it the benefit of the doubt. We'll wait until 8:30, and then we'll cancel services for the Hastings campus. He said, that sounds like a plan. But at about 5 after 8, I was anxious. Anybody know that feeling? I'm like, there could be people driving here. This is a lot of work. Because for us to cancel church, you're talking about not just a post on social media. You're talking about contacting, the media. So news like TV stations and radio stations and all that. There's a whole procedure we go through. So at 5 after 8, I just went, no, you know what? We need to do this. And so I told Karen Eaton, who kind of oversees the office area, I said, Karen, I'm pulling the trigger on this. Let's cancel. Let's start. A lot of phone calls going to be made, all that stuff. So let's do it. She said, okay. And so we canceled. You'll never guess what happened. At 8:28, care to guess? Power came back on. They come in, they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And I said, well, I guess we have to cancel our cancellation. And I turn around, and there's Joel Strickland with his finger up in my face, saying, if you'd have just had patience and done what you said you were going to do, we wouldn't be in this mess. And then he added to it, and if the offering's bad this weekend, it's your fault. I felt it was important for me to remind him that I was still his boss, but he was right. He was right. It's so easy for us to get impatient. Now, this week, that's what we're talking about because we're looking in the book of James in this series called Blunt. And I'd like you to grab a Bible and open to James chapter 5. James chapter 5, okay? And we're going to just read a handful of verses there. We have them behind the chairs, under the chairs. And if you're online, if you go to the lower left-hand side of your screen, you will see it. It says Bible, and you can click on that and go to James chapter 5. And we're going to read a handful of scriptures. Now, James, kind of the thesis of this series has been that James is an extremely blunt person. And my guess is that somebody that's really blunt typically is probably going to be an impatient person. We don't know this about James. This may be his learnings, or this may be wisdom that God's given him. But let's take a look, starting in verse 7. So James says, be what? Be patient. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, and then he repeats it again, be patient. Be patient. And stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you'll be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Verse 10, brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You've heard of Job's perseverance. Job was an Old Testament character who went through extreme trials. And you've seen what the Lord finally brought about. He's talking about for Joel, the Lord is full of compassion and mercy. So over and over, and over, and over, and over, James just kind of with this relentless, blunt perspective that he has, keeps saying, be patient, be patient, be patient. Of course, most of us would have the response, easy to tell somebody else to do, a little tougher to do yourself. Anybody agree with me on that? I tell people all the time, just be patient. And they look at me like, just shut up. You know that because it's easy to tell somebody else to be patient. But it's hard to do. So there are times when people will say to me, Jeff, just, because I can get kind of anxious and like, we got to do this, we got to do, just have some patience here. And I know they're right, and so I'll nod my head. But there are certain times in our lives when we're experiencing a pain that resides in us deep enough that somebody tells us, be patient, and we get angry. We get angry. Because the loss, the suffering, the pain that we're experiencing is so deep that we don't want someone to simplify by just be patient. You'll be through this. Don't worry about it. I think that Job was brought up for a reason by James, because if you know the story of Job, you know that Job lost like almost everything. Oh my gosh. He lost his health. He was in pain. He lost his wealth. He'd been quite wealthy. He just lost everything, and he lost all his kids and their families. It was just a terrible, horrific thing that happened to him. And in those moments of intense suffering, when you lose someone that you love who died too young, most of us have experienced this. When they're really close to you, man, that can wreck you. And then somebody says, be patient. No. I want to know, I want to hear from God. I want to know what God has to say about this. Why did he even allow this to happen? How could that be? We're angry, we're frustrated, we're suffering, we're in pain. You know what the interesting thing is, and this is a thing that many Christians don't really acknowledge, I think, is that we Christians, we believe that God wants to be there to comfort us and love us and be with us in our time of pain. Would you agree with that? God wants to do that, we say. We tell people, God will be there, he'll comfort you. What we don't acknowledge is that sometimes that does not seem to be the case. And some of you know what I'm talking about. In a place of pain, in a place of darkness, in a place when you had no patience and you had much suffering, and you thought God should be there, it was as if he didn't show up. I've been pastoring for a lot of years now, decades and decades. And I cannot tell you how many times people have said to me, as they're going through something, where's God? Where's God? A friend of mine, I was talking to him a while back about, his current, at that time, sort of malaise about the whole idea of God, just kind of whatever. He had suffered some incredibly deep losses, and this is what he said to me, and I will not forget this. He said, when all this happened, I didn't stop believing that there was a God. It's just that when I needed him, it was like he wasn't there. I always thought he was going to be there when I was in that place. And it was as if he wasn't there. And I could feel his pain, and I actually understood it because he's not alone. Many of us have experienced that kind of thing. I have. Renowned Christian writer C.S. Lewis, who may be one of the premier writers for Christianity, a man with a brilliant mind and a deep passion for God. After he lost his wife, in a time of great pain, he wrote words that I thought were so gripping. This is what he said. He says, "Meanwhile, where is God?" This is one of the most disquieting symptoms. It's like he says, when you're happy, so happy that you have no sense of needing him, God, you will be, or so it feels, welcomed with open arms. But go to him when your need is desperate, when all other help is vain. What do you find? A door slammed in your face. And a sound of bolting and double bolting on the inside. And after that, silence. And you may as well turn away. He says, the longer you wait, the more emphatic the silence will become. This from a guy who wrote tons of material on the reality of God and on the love of God. And some of you would say, I felt what he felt. Some of you have heard me talk about some of the dark seasons in my life that I've had as a pastor, and it's so difficult when you're supposed to be standing on the platform and preaching and you're going through this dark season, and I've experienced those in my life. And there have been times where I've actually thought to myself, if there even is a heaven, apparently the gates are shut to me, and God is ignoring my plea for his help and support in this difficult time. Now, I don't have all the answers to all these things, but here's what I can tell you that I've come to believe, that I've learned. I don't always know why it happens. But sometimes when you feel like you need God the most, it seems as if he's not there. And the hurt you feel from it can be pretty profound. But see, what I've learned is I've seen the same look in the faces of my own children. When I made a decision because I loved them and said no or not now or whatever, and they looked at me like, I need you to be here for this. I need you to be here in this way, and you are not. And it breaks my heart because I see their anger and I see their sense of resentment and I see their sense that you have let me down in this. And what I know is I look sadly at their faces when I was in those times where that happened. You don't understand. You don't understand. One day you will. But right now, you don't understand. And I've had those seasons in my life where I felt like God seemed to not be there, when in reality, in retrospect, I realize now that He was there all the time, but in a different way than I was mandating Him to be, because He knew what was best for me. And really what Scripture teaches through this, and actually C.S. Lewis even writes about this kind of from another perspective, when God, when you have this sense like God's saying no, or He's not responding to you, and He says, you'll get a look from God. It's like a silent, he said, certainly not uncompassionate gaze. As though He shook His head, not in refusal, but waving the question like, peace, child. You don't understand. I love those words. I so resonated with them because I actually understood that there are times in my life when it's like, God, why are you not here? Why are you not helping me with the suffering that I'm experiencing? And some things I may not understand for another decade or in this lifetime. I will understand them at some point. But I don't now. And what James says is, in those moments of suffering, the kind of suffering that Job went through, the kind of pain that people go through when they lose and suffer something deep, in those moments, this is what we are called to do. Have, can anybody say it? Patience. Maybe a better way to say it would be stand. Persevere. Have patience. Paul wrote these words in Ephesians 6:13. He said, therefore put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, I underline when because it doesn't say if the day of evil comes. You all know the day of evil comes with some regularity. Would you agree with that? Doesn't matter who you are. The day of evil comes. He says, so that when that day comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you've done everything, in other words, you've done all you know to do, you are to what? Stand. Paul says the same thing that James says. When you're in a place that is dark and difficult, when there's suffering, when there's pressure on your life and you feel like I just don't want to go on, I just can't take this, and you want to cut and run, you want to quit, you want to give up, you want to get away, you stand. You stand through it. You stand through it. You have character. You have integrity. See, what most of us know, but we really don't like to acknowledge, is that the vast majority of our best personal growth comes in seasons we would rather not have had happened in our life. Can I repeat that? That was really good, and I think you missed it, all right? So, some of our greatest personal growth, the strongest, best internal personal growth we have in our lives, comes as a result of those seasons that we wish would never happen because they hurt. And yet it's in those seasons that we grow. It's kind of like exercising. You know what they say? No pain, what? In the first weekend that we talked in this series, we talked about this verse in James chapter 1. James says, let perseverance, let being patient, let standing when everything seems to be falling apart, but not giving up, let it finish its work. So what is the work of perseverance? Well, he goes on to tell us, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, maybe more often than not, in certain ways, the only way I learn is when I have to go through times that are hard. And God has to look at me, and though He does not make me suffer, He will sometimes look and say, peace, child, you don't understand. You will. You will. Someday you will thank God for your unanswered prayer. Because you will see a growth in you. You will see a change in you as a result of you being patient. As a result of you being a persevering person, standing, even though it seemed so difficult and so painful, and you thought maybe that God had abandoned you. Now, this is true on so many levels. I heard a gal in our church family who shared about something. This illustrates what I'm saying. It's more of a first world kind of problem, but I thought it was illustrative. And I thought I'd share it with you. She, for the season of Lent, part of her fast forward, the saying no part was she was fasting chocolate, saying no to chocolate. Now, I understand that's a first world kind of thing that we would do, but she's saying no to chocolate. Well, they hadn't thought about it, and they had planned a cruise during Lent. So I'm going to pick up and read her writing, and these are her words. Just want to clarify that, all right? These are her words. She said, well, unbeknownst to me, our cruise last week was a culinary cruise, complete with one of the top 10 chocolate chefs in the freaking world. Her words, all right? She writes, seriously? And then she goes on. She said, I actually did not have any chocolate on the cruise. And that was so tough. And I can imagine it would be. But I feel like God is using that to point out to me that I do have the power through him to say no to my flesh. She said, it's a reassurance that I've needed. So she writes, I'm weirdly grateful. And I was like, I think I felt the same way. I've had times in my life where I was weirdly grateful after I went through something, because what happened in it was perseverance was able to do its work in me. It was able to build me. It was able to grow me. And all I want to do this weekend is I just want to kind of echo the words that James gives us. Have patience. Some of you need to hear this. Maybe it's related to your marriage. Maybe it's related to your work situation, or a relationship with someone in your family, or something in your community, or at school. Listen to me. Persevere. Let it finish its work. You've done everything you know to do, you say, and it just feels like it's not changing and I want to give up. And that is where, after you've done everything you know to do, Paul says, you stand. You just stand. You just remind yourself that there is a God who's bigger than you. Now, I want to give you some very simple thoughts on some of the ways that we can stand or have patience in suffering. And these are simple things. Of course, you know the stuff I share is always pretty simple stuff. There's an outline in the folder if you'd like to use it, some fill-in-the-blank parts for those of you who like those kind of things. And you don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. But here's the first thought. If you're going to walk through suffering with patience, if you're going to do it, none of us are going to want to hear this point, but you really need to fight complaining. Now, I started this by, my first point when I was writing out my talk was, don't whine. I thought, well, that's a little harsh. And then I wrote, don't complain. And then as I processed it through, I thought, really what we need to do is say, we got to fight complaining. Now here's why I say this. Because I understand this is like walking a tightrope. You know, sometimes you actually do need to ventilate to a friend and talk about what's going on in your life and the hurt that you're feeling or the pain. And sometimes there's something very healthy in doing that. And I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about complaining. So sometimes you're going to complain to a friend. Sometimes you're going to unload something that you need to. But here's the caveat in all that. It's a dangerous road. And I don't think we realize how damaging complaining can actually be in our lives. And here's why. It has to do with two X words, EX words. Now, these are words probably most of you know, but I want to remind you of them. These are the words exacerbate and extricate. Let's say them out loud. Exacerbate and extricate. And for those of you who don't know maybe what the definitions of these words are, here's the first one. Exacerbate. This means to increase the severity, bitterness, or violence of, and then it's usually describing a difficult circumstance, like a disease or an ill feeling or a damaged relationship or something like that. So what exacerbate does, when you exacerbate a problem, you take yourself further down the rabbit hole. You all with me on that? So when you exacerbate something, you make it worse, or you make it more, you intensify whatever it is that's happening. Now, extricate is kind of on the opposite end. To extricate is to free or release from entanglement, to disengage. And what you have to understand is that in your mouth, you hold the power of both being able to exacerbate the circumstances you're in or extricate yourself from the circumstances you're in. Because your words have enormous power. Have enormous power. And you have to fight this idea of complaining. You have to actually, this is about outcomes. See, sometimes when we're in the middle of it and we're just complaining about, I don't know what to do, and and I'm like in this in-between place, and it's just terrible, and we're complaining and we're belly aching. We don't realize that what it's doing is it's just exacerbating the situation. It's making it worse. You're going further down the rabbit hole. But when you change, when you choose to speak words that bring life, it makes such a huge difference. Now, again, true confession for me, I struggle with complaining. Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is. It's almost like sometimes I think I love to complain. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Or is this like an audience of angels, or some of you get what I'm talking? I don't know what it is, but I love to. Folks, I think you know what I'm talking about. So, like late February, we had a couple 60-degree days. And they were like awesome, like spring is here and it's wonderful. And then we went back to the weather that we are supposed to have in early March. And all of us had been whining like big babies. Oh, that was good preaching right there, and you just missed it. Is that true? Oh my gosh, you would think a 40-degree day is like, oh, hell is frozen over. We're just it's complaining is something that's so easy for us to do. And all of us struggle with this. But your words have incredible power. You can't lose sight of that. And when you're in a difficult place, when you're suffering, I challenge you to fight complaining. I actually think it'd be good for us to say to our families, if you're leaving today, if you have a conversation about this, say, look, you have permission to challenge me on the EX words. You can just say to me, are you exacerbating this situation, or are you extricating yourself from it? Because your words drive you down or lift you up. Come on. Your words drive you down or lift your words. And usually the bad words that are driving you down are you complaining about others' words. Fight, number one, fight complaining. Number two, refocus. Now, this is real simple, and I think you already know this, but what you focus on is what you see everywhere you look. Whatever you're focusing on. And when you're suffering, when you're in a difficult situation, it is hard to look at anything else. It's hard. But here's the deal. You have the power to actually, I know your eyes and your thoughts have been pulled over to this thing, but you have the power to refocus yourself on something else. And it's incredibly important that you do that because your focus shades everything in your life. You have the power. Now, I know it's hard. I know some of you going, yeah, I know I should, but I understand. I mean, it's like, have you ever been out to dinner and you're in a restaurant somewhere and like 2 tables over, there's a couple sitting there and they're arguing? And you say to yourself, that's the last thing I want. I'm here with my girlfriend, my wife or husband or whatever. And I just want to focus on them and enjoy a good time. But you find yourself through the meal. Come on, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then you're going, she does have a point. Oh, but that was a good response. Yeah, it's like watching a train wreck is horrific, but it's somehow compelling at the same time. And so we're pulled to the dark. We're pulled to the negative stuff. There's a pull. And you have to choose to refocus yourself. You have to actually make the decision to do that. And when you do, when you see that, which is good, when you make a change in your perspective, it's profound the difference it can make. Paul writes about this. I've read these verses so many times at TVC here. He says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is, say it with me, true, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, all these amazing things. He says, all those things, he says, think about such things. You have the power to move your focus to think about such things. He says, whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. And this last part's so beautiful. And the God of what? Peace will be with you. It changes how you see things. It changes because the glasses you wear shade everything. So I know some of you are like, dude, that is just so easy for you to preach. And I understand that. I understand when I'm wallowing in suffering and I'm feeling bad, it's hard to fight complaining and it's hard to refocus. But let me just give you a challenge, all right? This is just a little challenge for you. If you're having trouble refocusing, here's what you need to do. Put yourself in timeout. Okay, you all know what I'm talking about, right? Most parents are going to know about this. When a kid behaves badly, you go, you're going in timeout. In fact, let me just ask you, how many of you parents have ever put your kid in timeout? Would you just lift your hand up, please? And if you didn't put them in timeout, what kind of parent are you anyhow? You're either locking them in a closet or beating them or something. None of that's good, all right? So you know what it's like. You put them in timeout. And the goal of timeout is you go, I mean, some of you in your homes, I know some of you guys, in your home, there is a chair. It's the timeout, the dreaded timeout chair. And the kid, when you go, you're going to timeout, they don't have to be told where to go. They know. They're just like, okay, climb up in the chair, and they sit there, and they're like that. And the goal of it is that they would get an attitude adjustment and think through what they're doing. Now, sometimes they succeed, and sometimes they don't. But here's the thing that's always been fascinating to me. We have no trouble telling our kids to go to timeout, but we never seem to tell ourselves that. That was good. Come on, was it? We never tell ourselves that. It's like we don't say, hey, stupid, go into timeout. Okay. We don't do that. We just keep staying busy. We just keep working. And this is what happens. This is what we do. This is what often we do. When we're in suffering, we say to ourselves, I got to keep busy. I got to keep busy. I got to keep busy. So we keep busy complaining. We keep busy looking and focusing on the wrong thing. We keep busy. We're doing all these things, and we think that all that's doing is making it go longer. Here's something that happens when you go in timeout and you make right choices, whether it's an hour or a half a day or a day. As you go there, you don't do social media. You don't watch TV. You don't think around. You ask yourself some legitimate, important questions. Where's my focus now? Where should it be? What do I want to happen? Questions like that. How do I get there? And when you establish those things, then you begin to develop an adjustment to your attitude and you refocus. So this is it's huge. And yet it's amazing how so many of us, we never do this type of thing. We don't do it at all. Just take some time, reflect, and readjust your attitude. So first one is fight whining. Second one is refocus. Last thought. And this is the idea of make sure that you stay connected to people, to other Christ followers. Be better together. You want to get better. I'll tell you how it's going to happen. Together. All right, look. You know this. But when you hurt yourself, your your instinctual reflexive response is to pull inward. For example, you're cutting tomatoes and you slice your hand. What do? You pull it inside like that and you hold it in there. And somebody's saying, let me see it. No. Anybody ever had a kid hurt their hand and they're like, let me see it. And they're like, no, you can't see it. No, you can't see it. And so you pry their hand open and finally you get their hand out and then you pry their fingers open and you look and go, oh my gosh, you are going to die. No, you don't do that. Probably that would be, I don't know where that comes from. Their reflex is to hide it. This is absolute, and this doesn't stop when you grow up. It doesn't stop when you grow up. Look, here's the truth. Pain pushes us to hide. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a life group with people, or I've seen people that I haven't seen for a while at church, or I talk to somebody that I see in the store, and they will tell me a story, and this is often the story. I went through a real difficult time, and I just didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to be around anybody. Now, look, I understand this is a tightrope walk here because sometimes you got to put yourself in timeout, and that means you're not around people. But here's the mistake you made. Don't do it for a month or months. You need other people. Look, I love the people who are watching us online. I love our online family. But I would say to everybody watching online, I mean this with all my heart. Some of you are doing it because you've been in a dark place and you're like, I can't go, I can't be around people, you can't be around people. And I would say that's something you have to work at. You have to overcome that. You need to be a part of a church. See, following your instinctual responses is not always best for you. Think about what fear does to you. A person drowning invariably will try to fight the person who is endeavoring to rescue them. How insane is that? But we use the excuse. I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. I just can't right now. I can't be around anybody. I have to pull away from people. I have to get away from everybody. Listen, this is the problem with this, is that you get away from what you need, and that is the support of other human beings who are going in the same direction. And what you get from others when you're connected to them is something very valuable. One is that when you actually spend time around other people, when you're in deep suffering, you understand when you're with them that your suffering is not the only thing in the world. But when you're alone, it seems like it's all there is. Come on, is that true? It's your whole universe. That's all you can think about. But when you get with other people, you go, okay, dang, I might not be as in bad shape as I thought I was. You ever had that happen to you? You're talking to somebody, you realize, okay, what I've been whining about and complaining about isn't nearly what this person's going through. This isn't what I got. So it reminds you of this important truth. And it reminds you that you are not alone. You are never alone. Unless you pull yourself in and hide. And so I would just say this to you. You're better together. And maybe you need a little time out. Maybe you need it for a period of time or something. But not long distance. You need to be with other people. I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound really strong. You should be in a life group. It doesn't have to look just like a church life group per se that, one of TVC's look like or whatever. It could be any kind of, but you need to be connected with other believers who are traveling in the same direction to you that help encourage you to continue on your path. And if you aren't, this is my challenge to you. What do you think God would say to you about being connected to other Christians? Solomon actually made a statement I think is great. He said this, I don't know if there it is. He says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. It's interesting what he's saying here because he's talking about something called synergy. What he's saying is the return on their labor is better than just 1 plus 1. Something happens when we're connected. It's called synergy. Something good. You need that. And if you're not in a group, I challenge you, for many of us, maybe the next step we need to make, our next step should be, I need to get in a group. In the folder, you'll see that there's all groups listed, all kinds of things happening. Go out to the next step area. You can ask them to help you find your way into another group. That's what it's about. So patience is not easy, but when we let it have its perfect work, then we experience maturity in our lives, growth. I hope you'll do that. Start, of course, with your relationship with Christ. Are you in for God? I talked about this a few weeks ago. I actually believe this with all my heart. I think you're either all in or you're not in. Are you all in with God? Or is it possible that maybe you need to make that choice to go all in with God? Maybe you in the past said, I want to be a a Christ follower, but then you've wandered from it. If that's something you need to do, I'd love to pray with you. I won't make you stand up, embarrass you, pull you to the front. We won't tackle you on the way out. We won't force anything on you or brainwash you. But if you're saying, I need God, then I'd love to pray with you before we walk out of here today. Just a couple minutes, and then we'll be done. So would you all bow your heads, please, and just close your eyes? That's just out of respect for others. But if you're here and you need to recommit your life to Christ, or maybe for the first time ever, you're saying, I want to become a follower of Jesus. I don't understand it all, but I want to follow him. I want to give my life to Christ. If that's you, would you lift your hand up and just make eye contact with me? All right, sir. Okay, awesome. All right, that's great. Who else? If that's you, you're saying, God's working on me, just wave your hand at me if we haven't made eye contact. Okay, cool, awesome. Anybody else? Lift your hand up and wave it. If I haven't seen you, I don't want to push this. I'm not going to make this go on and on. But don't miss God if this is you. I know some of you are scared to death. You're like, oh my gosh, if I lift my hand, what does that mean? It just means you're saying, God, I'm turning my heart to you. Anybody else, lift your hand right now and make eye contact with me. All right, buddy. Good. Head still bowed, eyes closed. This is something you have to talk to God about yourself. So inside, you're just talking to God. Inside, it doesn't have to be out loud. But just say to him right now, I need you, God. I need you, God, in my life. I ask you, Jesus, to come in and take charge of my heart. Just tell him, I ask you, Jesus, to come in and take charge of my heart. I believe as best I know how. Just tell him, I believe in you, Jesus, as best as I know how. So come in and take charge of my life. I give you my life. And if you're serious, just say, I mean it. I mean it. I mean it. Tell him, with your help, I'm going to follow you. With your help, God, I am going to follow you. I'm going to come after you. And I give you my heart. And those of you who prayed that prayer, something significant has happened in your life, because when we take one step, God takes 100. It's amazing. And we pray for every person who lifted their hand, every person who prayed this prayer, even if they were scared and couldn't lift their hand, that they would grow in you, God. They would be aware of you, that they would develop a relationship with you that moves into a place they never dreamed it could. And may their hearts be filled and full of joy in the coming days and weeks. And all the rest of us, well, we just say, yay, God, for people making decisions for Christ. Such an awesome thing. Such an awesome thing. Yay, God. All right, let's stand to our feet, those of you who will. And we'd love, if you lifted your hand or prayed that prayer, we'd love to get you the book, 7 Basics. You can text that number, or you can go out to the Next Step area and grab one. They're free. We'll give it to you. And then we also have these Explore God group meetings that happen on Sundays at 11. And we'd love to have you be a part of that as well. And then on the way in, you were handed a card. Now, if you're visiting, this is our Easter invitation to you. If you're family, we want you to do what with this? Oh, let's try it again. We want you to do what? Give it away. Give it to somebody. Think of somebody you know. Our mission is connecting people with God. That's what we are about. And so let's work to do that, because more people go to Easter service probably than any other time of the year. Now, may you go with the peace of God. May you walk with his patience and perseverance. In the name of Jesus, amen.